Yeah. Hey, do yo. Trophied up. Yeah. Hey, do yo. Trophied up. Do your dance when the G's up. G. Spaced out. Got me geeked up. 10 toes on the west. Can I beat us? You cannot. Shining every time they meet us. Rack 'em up. Since 96. Yeah. Been number one in LA. Something slight. That's the gist.
Hello, everyone. We got three. We're supposed to have Eli Lesser on very soon. Welcome, episode 2 of Talkin Galaxy season 2. We're into 2026. Preseason just started for the LA Galaxy. We had a bunch of medicals going on over the weekend, and then today you had them. They post some photos. It looks like they're doing all the fitness testing and whatnot. So we're back. Andrew's not. No, but Dylan's here. What's up, Dylan? How you doing, man?
I am good. I am excited and happy to be back for another round. Episode 2. I'm back-to-back pods. That's a good sign.
Pods. This is going very well. Welcome everyone. We're gonna Eli's in the chat. Let me send him. Let me send Discord. Free Eli, everyone. Let me get Eli in here. But it's a party, everybody. Zanka is gone from the LA Galaxy. Nascimento is going to likely return. We're going to touch on some of those things tonight. It's been an interesting week for the LA Galaxy. I think we want to start with Lord Barry. Oh, no, that is not Lord Barry. We're going to start with Lord Barry right here. Dylan, initial thoughts on Miguel Barry going to the Charleston Battery in the USL?
If anyone's ever heard me talk about the Lord and Savior Miguel Barry, they know that I'm very fond of him. I think that he's just one of those MLS work rate demons where we got him at a time where he helped people settle in. And I have a huge admiration for him as a player. I just think that he's one of those gritty, know your role guys. It's like the white guy in the NBA where you're just like, he knows where to be. You know what I mean? He's just one of those guys.
He's a good role player.
He's a great role player. But at the same time, his move to Charleston Battery kind of summarizes his talent level, unfortunately, for the Galaxy to bring back all the strikers they had last year and him not be one of them. I think that that explains quite a bit about how they feel about him.
Absolutely. Eli, welcome to the stream, brother. How you doing?
How you guys doing? It's good to see you guys.
It's good to
tough.
See you.
It's tough seeing the Lord and Savior go, but you know, maybe we'll see him in another life.
Maybe he'll ball out and come back. Congratulations to Miguel Barry on his move to Charleston Battery. Look, I hope that when we look back in the future, Miguel Barry's legacy at the LA Galaxy is a fun one, maybe a bit of like a cult hero. And that is really what he was, for the LA Galaxy. He had his moments. The RSL game, I mean, we don't have an invincible run at home last season if Miguel Barry does not score that equalizer in stoppage time against RSL. So, who knows what kind of implications that would have had, if the Galaxy looked like they could be beat at home at all last year, which they didn't. So, you never know what could have happened if we would have lost that game to Real Salt Lake. But Miguel Barry had his moments for the LA Galaxy. Ultimately, just wasn't going to be the guy in the long term. He didn't have to be. But Eli, do you remember this guy's like breakout time in like Columbus or whatever? Because you're like very familiar with MLS as a whole. I was a little unfamiliar with who he was, and then I kind of saw he went on an insanity run, fell off a little bit. Do you want to go over like Miguel Barry's kind of evolution in Major League Soccer?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually followed him through like his MLS Super Draft year, just because that happened to be one of the years I was locked in on it. It was 2020. It was a good year. Daryl DK was in that year. Ryan Raposo, Robbie Robinson went number 1, who is retired now. But that was a good year. Ton of good players. Yeah, so he was great with Columbus. And then one thing I do remember is him with Atlanta. He scored one of the greatest goals I have ever seen in MLS. And that was the one goal he scored for Atlanta. But I remember when we did sign for him, he did sign for us, that I was hyping up that goal a bit too hard because I thought we were getting that player every single match. But we got a different legend. As you mentioned, what he did for us in that RSL match was very important. And I think his jersey should be hung up in the rafters right next to Jack McBean and Ethan Zubox. So, I think he belongs in that iconic ring of fire for us.
No, absolutely. Club legend. Build the statue. We'll have it outside of Legends Plaza very shortly here. Dylan, did you follow Miguel Berry? What was it like when he first came to the Galaxy? What were your initial thoughts and reactions to that?
Can this guy get me 5 goals?
Yeah.
Like, that was my initial thought, was like, can he be serviceable? Which he absolutely was. Like I said, he's just that perfect role player striker. We needed minutes, right? A team that had a ton of games throughout the course of the calendar year just needed somebody to come in, sprint, be a menace. He did that multiple times. And even during that early portion of this last season, I go back to the game against Vancouver. Like, we couldn't generate offense to start the year. Miguel Berry comes in and we made it work. And I have good memories of this guy. I also live in San Diego, and he played for the Loyola a few times. He had 2 different loan spells, and so I can picture him always in some of those really cool San Diego Loyal kits. So I just really like him, and when he came here, I was like, wow, this guy's kind of hot. Like, we can totally work with that. I think half of being a striker is how attractive you are, and then the rest of the game kind of follows.
Yeah. Ask Kevin Cabral that. Winger, but whatever. Regardless, Eli, we do have a question in the chat. So, obviously we talked about you being very familiar with MLS in general. You're a Galaxy fan, but primarily, you cover everything MLS related. Not that. Question in the chat is, Eli, what is the average time frame MLS players last in Major League Soccer from what you've seen?
So I'm going to go with a player like Miguel Berry, and sadly for players like Miguel Berry, it's harder to last in MLS. So you have to give him whatever you think of him as a player. For him to get a third team to be on in MLS is pretty impressive at this rate. So for a player like Miguel Berry that was drafted in like the top 10 of his super draft, usually it's like 2 to 3 years max now. And then maybe 2 or 3 in the top 10 actually make a full career in MLS. And usually you'll see the rest of those guys in USL or lower.
Yeah, no, certainly. Andrew, what would you say? I know you and Dylan pay attention to Major League Soccer generally. What does the average time frame of an MLS player, kind of look like in Major League Soccer?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's a lot shorter. It's a lot less than people would expect. When you think of a professional athlete's career, you might think somewhere in the range of 8 to 10 years at like a high level. That's a really solid. And I think the average fan's head, that's an average career. But in the MLS at a top level in the US, at least, that's not quite the case. Whether that speaks to the talent that we have or to the actual quality of the league, it's probably a little bit of both there. But I think it's a really interesting question by Blessing Paintel. It touches into a lot that Diego Fagundes told us last week on the show.
Yeah.
He mentioned that it's really hard for players to stay in MLS to carve out something of a consistent career. And as much as, Diego and a couple of other maybe unks in a team, veterans in a team have been slated for some of their performances, just the fact that they're still there doing it at a tough level, that's commendable enough. But yeah, I think a really interesting way to tie in both things. And Eli, again, spot on the head, especially if you're not one of those top names who really rise above. If you're the cream of the crop, it's easy to get passed up in this league. There's always a younger, hungrier, maybe more talented kid. There's always someone else coming up. So it really forces you to be on your toes and stay fit. And we've seen, again, talking back again about the older, more veteran players, it's tougher for them to keep up sometimes. If you're someone who really is above of that top class, someone maybe like Benteke, who while he was available, was able to, impress, make some good moments. And not everybody does that all the time. Even new players from Europe, they might struggle a year or two. So it's just a tricky league to really be in a good run of form and keep that any amount of seasons. So a really interesting question. And yeah, one of those interesting things about the MLS.
Yeah, Dylan?
It's an American league, is what I'll say, at its finest moment. I think the average duration of any American league is around 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, just based off of the idea that these guys go to college and they're not in an academy system for the most part. And I think we'll eventually see that age get larger and larger as the pipelines continue to grow within the US, especially with things like USL having pro relegation and stuff like that. So I think it'll expand, but currently as constructed, a lot of very short careers. I mean, I think of guys like Lepley. Isn't Lepley like 24, 25 at this point?
Yeah.
So for a guy that I think has immense talent, has barely played. How long until he hangs it up on his current contract to go and pursue another career? Like, he went to UCLA. It's not like he went to some school and doesn't have a good degree. Like, he's got a UCLA degree. He can absolutely go to a field and probably make similar money that'll be more consistent throughout his career.
Yeah,
And we're seeing that with a lot of players. There was a guy who was killing it in MLS Next Pro named Jacqueline a couple years ago. He was like the Golden Boot winner, and he was a great player, and he should have been in MLS, but he never made it. So he just retired, even though he was at the top of his game at a certain level. I just looked it up. I want to talk about it. The third overall pick in the 2025 MLS Super Draft didn't even make a single appearance for the Chicago Fire. So that's just kind of the state of the Super Draft and the college system, which it really sucks because I believe in the college game as a pathway to pro. But it just shows you kind of where teams are at with that. So that's why I want to give Miguel Berry his props even more for him to outlast that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, gosh, you could have a whole nother podcast on how broken the system is in the United States, with all the way down to academies being so pay to play. Separates, the United States largely from Europe. And I've always thought of it this way. I mean, if you really did not, have money, you couldn't get a scholarship to play soccer, I would go play any of the other 4 sports that you can know. You could go to high school and play, and that's your pipeline is through college, because, you're not seeing guys in like the NFL, they don't like have club, they don't have like club teams like they do here. They do when you're growing up and playing like football, they have like, little league and whatever, but like your pipeline's through college. It's not the same in the United States. You see a lot of these guys, if you really want to go pro, I think your best chance is through the academies, and the chances are you're going to have better coaches, you're going to have a better chance of development. But the issue is that it prices players out of the game a lot, which is why I think until that system is fixed, the United States is just always going to be behind, and soccer is not going to grow as a sport within America until I think that's addressed. Because in the meantime, I would just choose football. If money was a big factor in my decision on what sport to play, I would just choose football, baseball. Not that any of them are easier to get into, but I mean, shoot, you don't have to sacrifice everything for it like you do academy ball. So props to Miguel Berry. Charleston Battery, I'm sure he'll kill it. Maybe he can make a move back to MLS. I mean, you've seen that on occasion. There is some, pathway for USL players to go to MLS, and you've seen that. Elijah Winder, a bit younger than Miguel Berry, but came from, Louisville City and ends up with the LA Galaxy, one of the record fees from, USL to MLS. So looking forward to see what happens with Miguel Berry at Charleston Battery, and we wish him the best of success. And staying on the striker topic, Matthias Nascimento, everyone, he's coming back. Not officially official. I would expect an announcement within the next few days, honestly, from the LA Galaxy. It sounds like all the stuff that, they're wrapping up is merely formalities at this point, or just final details they're ironing out. But it seems like the basis of this is going to be Nascimento coming back on a 6-month extension. Now, look, I've heard differing takes on this, and I think my take's a little different. Some people have said that, hey, maybe that, extension until the summers, because they have like, a big guy like, Robert Lewandowski, that's always a name thrown around in the community. I know Eli is smiling over there. His dream signing, maybe they have someone like that in the works. After the World Cup, the market looks very interesting. I think this is a contractual thing, because his contract with Botafogo expires in December of 2026. I don't think they would allow him to go out for a year and then just allow the Galaxy to sign him for free, after his contract runs out. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they'll allow that to happen, because I could tell you I'd bring him for free permanently, but that's not, Botafogo wants their money, so they're only going to agree to a 6-month loan. But if he plays 50% of the games, I think it's either 50% of the games or 50% of the minutes. We're going to have to find out at a point here. But if he plays 50% of the games or minutes, that buy-on option of $6 million is automatically triggered, no matter what. $6 million automatically wired to Botafogo. Nascimento is permanently a U22 player for the LA Galaxy. I don't know how I feel about this. I think that's a steep price tag for a player that hasn't shown much goal scoring quality. But Dylan, we'll start with you. Thoughts on Matthias Nascimento coming back?
I think it's a win-win. I have no idea why this would be looked at as a negative idea in any sense of the word. I mean, look, he balls out, you pay this $6 million, and you have a new striker for the next 4 years. He plays bad, you don't give him 50% of the minutes. He goes back to Brazil, and you go sign a striker. I think that when we look at MLS teams, it's so much easier to go plug and play a 9 than it is any other position. And so for the Galaxy to just get to the summer, and then, like you just said, there's multiple options in the summer of strikers out of contract, that I think that's just an easier route. And letting a young kid develop, get half a season essentially under his belt, after I thought he was very good last year in a lot of the technical portions of his game. For a goal scorer to just figure out goal scoring, I can see him doing it. While $6 million is a lot of money, I'm not going to say it's not. It's also not my money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not shelling out $6 million. The Galaxy
Those
have
are my
deep pockets.
Modelo's. Put it towards that.
Yeah, hey, man, if we're winning games, I don't care how much money this team spends. And honestly, we should spend money. We're the Galaxy. We're one of the 3 biggest franchises in the entire league. The league expects us to spend money. We should have the pockets to do so. And if he plays well, I don't see an issue with it. That's why I think it's just a win-win.
Eli, do you have a differing opinion on that?
Not necessarily a different opinion. One thing that I think is very important for us right now, given we are in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, and we also want to be competitive again because we weren't last year, is that you need to take advantage of every MLS roster mechanism out there. And for me, it's the U22 spots. We have no excuse but to fill up all 3 of those. Those are so crucial. And, I do like the idea of potentially, triggering that $6 million, because he will still be able to stay as a U22 player, because he'll already be in that contract. So that's something to take advantage of. And if we sign him on a long-term deal before he ages out of that spot, he still stays in the U22 spot. So it's like, if we really feel like he can be the guy for us, then this is a no-brainer. If he sucks, then it is what it is. So I do agree with Dylan where it is kind of like a win-win either way. I'm just worried that if he does suck, what are we going to do in those first 6 months of the season? Because as much as I love Christian Ramirez as a human being, I don't think he's necessarily the option for us as a starter right now. But who knows? I mean, I saw the quotes of Gabriel Peck. He's on one this season. He's ready. He's matured. He's ready to go. And I think he wants to go for that MVP. So maybe he could make Christian Ramirez into the 15 goal scorer that he once was. But that's my only worry. But in the meantime, we have to fill up every single roster spot as we can. That's why I want Ricky on the season-ending list. We want that open DP spot. Find some use for all of those spots because we need it for CONCACAF. We need it to be competitive in the West again.
Yeah. Andrew?
Yeah, I think Dylan and Eli killed it. There's not really too much more to add in terms of the benefits of the deal. I think they did a really good job in arguing the pros, which I feel like I appreciate because it has been a pretty negative conversation around Nascimento. Generally, lots of people do believe in him, but not many people are excited when they talk about Nascimento. And that's something that's always been interesting to me. I've reiterated this time and time again, but to me, Nasi has a higher ceiling than Dejan Joveljic did, at least in his first 1-2 years. Like Dylan mentioned, I really like the technical part of his game, the football IQ, the link up. Doesn't necessarily miss a pass. He knows how to weigh them. He just has that little bit of a scoring instinct. He knows the type of touches to make in attacking third. And for the first 2, maybe even 3 years of Dejan's tenure, I felt like he was quite the opposite. I call them, kind of a log, the way the ball would just bounce off him, not the best touch. But we gave him the patience to develop that, and he ended up becoming a killer. Nasi has a different game, but I just feel like with the raw product that we have, he's around the same age. I want to say that Dan was when he joined, very young, but even still super raw. I find a lot of things to like about Nascimento's game. I think he's one of maybe another. Everybody misses out by not having Ricky Puig, but I feel like Nasi especially does because I feel his game just complements that tiki-taka, one-touch, two-touch, give-and-go game that Ricky Puig loves to play. And I think that would have been really, really effective. So it's a shame we won't see that. But there is still good pieces around it. Like Eli mentioned, Gabriel Peck is going to be motivated. That, Brazilian connection. We might see some Joga Bonito a lot, which I'm definitely not opposed to. But I'm just super high on him. I do think, again, to reiterate Dylan's point, it's a win-win. And to reiterate Eli's point, to use up that U22 spot, he's someone who knows the system, a young kid who we won't have to drag from another foreign country and, take him away from his mom for the first time in his life. That's tough on kids as well. Nasi's been through that, and it's just one less thing for him to worry about. He could just focus on getting out there and killing it. Lucas Sanabria, Elijah Winder in similar boats there. So I'm high on the youth in general, but I think especially in Nasi, I just feel like he showed so many just pure football moments that it's worth investing in. And if it's worth anything, I saw more of those moments from Nasi than I did from Dayon early on. So I'm high on him. Dayon turned out to be a great investment. I'm confident Nasi can, but 6 million is steep. I definitely understand the pros to that side of it, but we're not paying that yet. We have 6 months to think about it. And yes, 6 months to, force our hand or not. And I think it's a good challenge, and he's in a good space to go ahead and attack it.
Yeah, look, I think what Eli said about I think Dylan said it too. You're the LA Galaxy. You have AEG as your owner, one of the richest owners in all of American sports. Write the check. But I think from a business perspective, I look at it and I get a little worried at that price tag. I think Nascimento is a very, very raw player, and not saying that he can't be what Dejan Joveljic, was. I don't feel like he was the same prototype of a striker. I feel like Nascimento is very much, he might be more of a Vanny striker, honestly, because, he plays that false nine role. He drops a little, he drops a little deeper for the team. And maybe that doesn't necessarily reflect on the goal scoring sheet, all of the hard work that Nascimento does, the pressing ability. I think there's a lot of pros to his game, but at the same time, I just, for a guy that hasn't proved much to me, and you could say that's a byproduct of, what the team was last season. That's fair. Dejan Joveljic had a goal scoring pedigree before he came to the Galaxy in the A League, I believe it was. And, you could criticize how good that league is compared to Major League Soccer, but you saw that at a point, Dejan Joveljic was a goal scorer, and that you can get that out of him. I don't know what Nascimento's goal scoring ceiling is right now. I feel like that's very much unknown, and maybe that's okay. Maybe you don't need a guy that scores you 20 goals. If all around it works better for your system and other guys are scoring, then that's fine. He does his job right. But for me, I think there's got to be other strikers. That's what resonates with me most, is the fact that, you're right. You're going to have to bring in a guy that's going to have to adapt. Maybe you take a little step backward, which isn't a good thing. But I feel like there's a guy for $6 million that has a lot higher of a ceiling than Nascimento. And I'm sorry, it's not a knock on the guy. It's just a fact. It's just a fact, is that all around the world for $6 million, that used to be DP price tag, and that still is DP price tag for, certain teams. He'll count as a U22 because of his salary and whatnot. However, those, metrics work for the LA Galaxy. But for me personally, I just look at this and I see that, hey, I'd rather spend the $6 million somewhere else than Nascimento, and maybe they don't end up paying it. To me, this feels like more of an injury clause than anything, because if all goes well, I think Nascimento's your starter the first game day. And I have a lot of questions for Will Kuntz and the front office. If they bring Nascimento back on the U22 loan and he doesn't play 50% of the games, I'm sorry, I'm going to have questions as to why we brought him back in the first place and didn't look in a different direction. And maybe you could approach that in the summer. But this coaching staff, this organization, this club cannot afford another 2025 start or anything close to it. It can't happen. Is Nascimento the guy to fix your issues? Maybe. Maybe he's better. Maybe you bring in that DP number 10 and Nascimento's goal scoring rates is better, And one stat that I will say, I'll play the other side here. Nascimento's winning percentage, the Galaxy's winning percentage while he was starting versus not starting last year, was significantly higher when he was starting. So, it didn't work out with Christian Ramirez. I don't think he's starting caliber. I think he's an okay backup, but honestly, I think he's on the trading block. I would not be surprised to see him land somewhere else in MLS. But I don't know. If anyone wants to say anything on that, I'll let you plug in, Eli.
Well, no, I mean, I think we saw a better Galaxy at the end of last season than we did at the start of the season, and I think, unfortunately, maybe the front office is a little delusional in the way where they think that, hey, we're building something good here, so let's keep it going, and maybe that will work out, maybe it won't. But I think the reason why I like Nasi coming back, and we're going to talk about another player who we should maybe bring back later, but it's continuity. And Nascimento's already here. Yes, there probably are a ton of U22 strikers that are $6 million that are way better than Nascimento, but the preseason isn't as long as you think it is. Yeah. And the team has to go out and scout that guy, but why go out and scout that guy when they have a guy that, hey, they at least believed in at one point to bring him in the first place? So why not continue to push that? And I want to just bring up, because I love talking about this, but the David Goss theorem. David Goss is a former MLS pundit at MLS.com, but he always said, foreign players don't judge a foreign player on their first year in MLS, judge them on their second year. And I'm hoping for a number of our guys, including Sanabria, that we don't judge them until we see what they have this year.
Yeah, Dylan.
It's a tough one. The $6 million is a high price tag, like I said, but it's not coming out of my pocket. So I have this. Obviously, my view on it is tinted. I just think that he's really good. I think I saw it in the comments from LA Galaxy commentary about him being a more Firmino-esque player. And that's how I view him, is I don't need Nascimento scoring, 15 goals a season. I expect Joseph Paintsel and I expect Peck to increase their numbers, because both of their numbers last year were horrid. I mean, yeah. Peck in particular, he underperformed his XG by, I think, 4 goals. And to put that into perspective of the championship year, he overperformed by like 4 goals. So there's some just settling back into the margins of our star players playing better. I also think that for me, Greg Vanney is under a microscope, just because we saw him not adapt at all when Ricky went down. And now we're at a point where he has to adapt with Ricky going down. I'm going to wait to see kind of tactically how they look in preseason, but the modern footballing game is going to a 3-2-5 or a 3-2-4-1, however you want to look at it. And we have the team to do that. And you have the ability to either put Paintsel or Peck inside with Nascimento and Royce, which, I'm sorry, if you can't score goals and you can't create chances as a team with those 3 players or those 4 players, then we don't deserve to have the team, and it should all get blown to smithereens. That's how I feel. And if you can't make it to the summer with those guys and wait for Alua or the guy that I didn't mention last episode, which is Danny Welbeck, like, there's going to be guys available who can score goals for fun. Yeah. You just got to get to that point. So yeah, that's kind of where I sit.
Andrew, I'll let you respond to my next kind of claim on this. I think Nascimento, him as a striker, I mean, like you said, he's coming back. He knows the Vanney system. It's not an adjustment. You don't have to go out and scout. But what were we doing last year? Like, you know what I mean? Like, when they realized by June that we were going to miss the playoffs and Nascimento wasn't performing like they thought he would at the time. I mean, maybe they weren't ready to make a final decision on him, but I think if the Galaxy were smart, and they are, I trust the people in the front office, I think they would have scouted people over the winter, potential alternatives, not that you have to settle on a single guy. And maybe they did. Not saying they didn't. I'm sure there's people much, much, much smarter than me working up there, of course. But my whole point is that, I think that period to scout already happened. If you don't have a guy, and I don't want to portray it as a panic move because I don't think it is, but I could see how it comes off to some people as a panic move. Second point, this one where we acting like Nascimento was already bought for $6 million. He's not. He might not come back. I mean, that's not my point. I'm in 2 frames here. Is that if he comes back, okay, maybe he balls out, and maybe this isn't even a conversation in 4 months. Maybe you're just like, oh, it's a no-brainer. This guy has 10 goals right now. Of course, we're going to bring him back. that League's Cup form, Nascimento, exactly what I want to see over the course of a whole season. He was balling. He was fragging out in League's Cup. He's not bought for $6 million, but my whole point is that if you're bringing a valuable U22 spot and you're spending it on Nascimento, even if it's for the first 6 months of the season, if you are spending that spot on a player that you do not think will play over 50% of the games, that's a management issue. That's my whole thing on it. Go ahead.
Devil's advocate, or maybe not devil's advocate, but maybe the panic was when Ricky went down again and they're like, oh crap, we need to focus on replacing him right now. We already have this guy who is already familiar with the system. Yeah. So let's use that last U22 spot, which we still have, on a guy to replace him. So that's what I'm thinking could be the panic in this situation. That's just, I don't have anything else on top of that, but that's what I wanted to add.
No, I mean, I think you're right, because you only saw this rumor really pop up after Ricky went down, and they knew that he was going to be out again. So yeah, that's kind of my response to that question is, if they're not going to pay the $6 million and they know that they're not going to pay the $6 million, then that's telling me you plan on playing a U22 player, which should be very important to your team. You only get 3 of those spots. They don't have to be polished, but they should be playing more than 50%. And if they're not, and you don't intend on it, then I think you've made a grave mistake in how you're managing your roster. But I think they think he's going to play over 50. They're competent people. I think they think he's going to play over 50%. They're just taking a little gamble on the price tag that he's going to look worth it. Because if he plays over 50% and the Galaxy are trying to compete for a playoff spot, and he has like 3 goals, and you're paying $6 million, I mean, that's like $2 million a goal. I don't know. I'll let you respond to that, Andrew. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. In MLS, one of the biggest things you need to succeed is to have your most valuable roster spots occupied by players who are productive. The minute any of those players, U22 DPs, stops producing, it's like a massive weight on the team, and suddenly the playoff chances start going down pretty quickly. So that's absolutely a valid point. But I liked Eli's point a lot, that it was probably triggered, that it might have been triggered at least by the Ricky Puig news. Let's go ahead and pivot and put our efforts and our resources elsewhere. But there's also the point that maybe there was a minute restriction on him last year. Who's to say if he played half of the minutes he was available for last year, that would have automatically triggered it. And maybe that's another reason that Vanny kept him out of the team. It's also worth saying that the first probably quarter, maybe even more of the season, he was coming back from an injury. He wasn't necessarily training with the first team fully. So that probably hindered it. There's a lot of chunks of his minutes that have been taken out by other factors. And I mean, these contracts are so funky, we never get to look at them. But who knows, that might have been a clause. That was the case for Christian Ramirez. If he played over 50% of the minutes, I think he triggered an option, something like that. But there was a reason why he was kind of game restricted, and maybe apart from how much faith Vanny had in him. But those things it's something that we've already seen happen that same season. Who's to say that wasn't the case? But again, to your point, I totally agree. You need to make those players count. And I think the Galaxy's vision is he's going to make them count. That's really the gamble. And, they're putting all the 6 million at least of their chips on the Nazi square, and they're going to see how it turns out, how the table turns. But it's a tricky situation. The Galaxy front office probably isn't a very fun place to be right now, especially after the Ricky Puig news. Again, I think Nascimento with Puig would have been, lightning in a bottle. That's just, to me, a match made in heaven, the way they play. And probably the plan was to keep him and see how that works. But again, unfortunately, we won't see that. It's just another reason why they probably decided to stick with Nasi rather than go ahead and do that research elsewhere. In my eyes, they're looking to, at the very least, the summer, and taking some more time to look at some more numbers. And again, the summer window is when the more interesting options are available. So it could just be it's a convenient stopgap and a relatively cheap one at U22. The Galaxy don't necessarily have. They have maybe $1 in GAM, TAM, and those fake MLS bucks. $1 million, I mean. So it's not necessarily the most amount of room to work with. So he's a 200K stopgap on the salary cap. And if they're putting all those resources, the quantitative analysis side of it, and looking towards the summer or beyond, then that makes sense. Just get the stopgap and make your big move then. And, in the meantime, give the kid a chance to really impress you.
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much said everything, that I wanted to say. I mean, you're absolutely right. The summer window should look very interesting for the LA Galaxy because I think they'll actually be active in it. Whether they decide to use their DP spot then or now. I mean, this might, there was, rumblings that maybe they'd use the DP spot on a striker. At least for this window, I feel like this move kind of closes the door on that. I don't think you bring back Nascimento if, I don't think you bring him back if you have a DP striker coming in. I'll just put it that way because I don't think Ramirez is going to be third string and I don't think Nascimento is going to be a backup. I think, you're probably looking at Nascimento being your starter, Ramirez the backup, and they'll probably plug somebody in. It's interesting because Greg Vanney did not seem like he was very happy with the striker situation in the final, press conference and that he had of last year. It didn't seem like, he was too happy with the goal scoring production and that he wanted a guy that could score around 15 goals. I think something would majorly have to change with Nascimento for him to be the 15 goal guy, but maybe you could get 15 out of Nasi and Ramirez. That could be another thing. Dylan, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, can I have to say it because every time I hear that, that's such a ludicrous thing to say. He wants a 15 goals per season goal scorer. That doesn't grow on trees. You don't just magically get that. Yeah. At the price tag that we're looking for a player of that caliber, like that doesn't grow on trees. You have to pay top dollar for that. I don't think there was that many 15 goal scorers in the league last season. You couldn't have gone 30 teams and picked 15 goal scorer. You know what I mean? Like that's an unrealistic target. And so this is where my biggest gripe with Greg Vanney comes in is I think there's more than enough talent there. And I think the idea that you have to have a 15 goal per season striker is crazy to me because you've got wingers that are pitching in with 10 plus goals every season regardless. I don't think there's maybe any other team barring Inter Miami and LAFC that I can really think of that have that type of production on the wings. Unless you guys can tell me another one off the top of your head, I just can't think of one.
No, I can't. We got a question similar. Eli, you could touch on what he said and this question for all, but we'll start with Eli. If Nascimento had 10 to 15 goals by the summer, would that be enough to be signed or would he need more?
Yes, obviously. I mean, if he actually hits the 15 goal mark that Vanney wants, of course. I mean, if he hits 15 goals by the end of the season, that's a success in my book. One thing I wanted to add on to what Dylan said and what we've just been talking about with, hurrying and the DP spot and all that. I mean, I personally, my ideal world, we would have traded for a DP striker within the league that we could have used for a year. And I heard of some names that were moved this offseason that I can't name drop, but that, Galaxy did make offers to. The problem was the cap stuff and the cap tiedness. And this was also before the Ricky injury. But that's why I think it is so important to use that U22 spot because you have that 200K, as Andrew said, that is a guaranteed cap hit. Any of those guys that we could have brought in would have hit it way harder. So I think we played it safe here. And I think in a perfect world, we go for someone big in the summer. I personally want the third DP spot to be used on a striker. Because I think using it on a 10 would be a waste for 2027, where we could bring in a guy that we could sign and take Ricky's spot for the rest of this year. But then next year, I seriously doubt we go with the triple Ps in 2027. One of them is going to leave at some point, probably Peck if he blows up this year. So I'd rather have a striker, a star striker set in stone for the next couple of years. And invest in that 15 goal striker that Greg Vanney so desperately wants. So that's where I want to see us go. I think it would have been great for this year to go within the league, because that's more of like a guarantee, I guess, especially with the strong wingers we have. But we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't use that DP spot till the summer. But I'm hoping that once we use it, it's for someone long term.
Andrew?
Eli's spitting. Dylan has made a similar point on similar show on other shows we've done, but the idea of gearing up towards something special in the summer, it makes a lot of sense. It feels like that might be the direction the Galaxy are heading. Just reading the writing on the wall. I would have loved, again, I don't know if there's any Galaxy fan who would have not wanted to see one of these big league proven strikers join a team immediately. We would have, that would have brought us up a pretty significant way after the low we've been on since the Ricky injury news. That would be massive. But the reality is it just doesn't make sense. And at the end of the day, that's what Will Kuntz is responsible of looking at, making sure that we stay in the black in some sense so that the numbers do work out and that we stay within the limits and that we don't get transfer banned again, a la Christian Pavon. We don't need that. So, and that's part of his job. But it's, it's the unfortunate reality. But like everything else, time passes. The summer will be here before we know it. And there will probably be something maybe even more exciting than something within the league that we're all going to be thankful for. We waited a couple of months for. So it's, to me, I'm not devastated by it. I was honestly comfortable with the way the striker is decision. I'm probably one of the people higher on Nasi who maybe might be overestimating his actual impact on a team this early in his career, quote unquote. But that doesn't worry me, especially with the option of just making that big move in the summer, really making sure that relationship with the player, with the agent is locked down, spending all this time to build that rapport, making sure that the money's right, getting yourself time to ask Uncle Phil for another check if you need it, for making that kind of splash. But all of those options are there, and it's what the Galaxy need for 27. I think a big part of that as well is that I don't think anyone is expecting Ricky Puig to be 2024 Ricky Puig in 2027. If that were the case, if this were FIFA and he would just heal up and be the same player, then you just run what you did in 24, basically. Keep, strikers like Nascimento who would complement Puig. Just move forward with that, slap Ricky Puig in there, and it's peak Ricky Puig, and you don't really have to worry about anything else. But I think it's, to the Galaxy's best interest to start thinking about that next big DP, the next Ricky Puig. Unfortunately, it feels like it's too soon, but that's the reality of the situation, and it just looks like it's set up for that to happen in the summer.
Yeah,
especially if Tech does make that move, which is what he wants, like Eli mentioned too. That's a massive part of it. If we want to make it work, I don't think we're gonna buy out Puig or anything like that. Pack is probably someone who is gonna make way. We keep that striker. We keep whatever version of Puig we have, and Joseph Paintsel potentially, or make another big move. But there's just all those pieces. It seems like they're starting to align.
Absolutely. Dylan?
I actually want to kick it to you. Do you kind of fall in the same idea that you want to spend the DP money on a striker, or do you fall maybe in the 10?
I think you get a 10.
Okay.
I'm going to differ a little here. I think you get a 10. I say that because I talked about it a lot when we had Diego Fagundes on last podcast. Well, first of all, to answer this question, absolutely. If Nascimento has 10 goals by the summer, $6 million's well worth it. You get what you get out of them. Perfect, fine. It's not even a conversation. Like we said, nobody will be talking about that $6 million price tag if he produces like the Galaxy hope he will. So that's not even a question. But to answer that one, I think you do use the DP spot on an attacking midfielder. Talked about it last time. Every Greg Vanney system that's had success in Major League Soccer has been reliant on an elite number 10. I don't think you could depend on Ricky Puig being close to the same player that he was. And, I'll kick it to Eli next, but I did want to cover Ricky Puig a little here. Ricky Puig, I hope everybody hopes will be the same after his injury. I don't think he will. I think the reality is he won't be. And he's a competitor. If there's a guy that can, it's him. But I think when you actually go back into reality, you realize that you're going to be going on 2027 with an attacking midfielder on a DP contract that last played in 2024. That's an issue. But that's not something you're going to be able to get out of. He's a designated player, and his contract expires halfway through the first fall to spring season. So it will expire on December 31st. I don't know. It depends what version you get of him. Ricky Puig as a player is so incredibly reliant. He's small. That's fine because he wiggled through tight spaces in the midfield. He broke out of pressure. And even when they hacked him down, I mean, shoot, we talked about this when he was on the Galaxy. He should have gotten a lot more foul calls than, he actually got, because they were tearing him down every single game. It was just a part of teams' game plans. It was like hack a Shack. It's Hacker Ricky, but that's the type of guy he is because of his, physical stature. He's not guaranteed to ever be as agile as he was, ever be able to get out of tight spaces like he did after that ACL surgery, because you need your ACL to be fully trusted. You need to fully trust your ACL. And even if you do, you might just not turn the same. Things that you used to do just out of habit, things that were second nature to him, don't become second nature anymore. And you have to relearn the game. Look, it's almost like signing a guy. It's almost like a new signing next year, but a guy that you truly don't know what you're going to get out of him, but you know what he can be. But you're like, can he do it anymore? Kind of like when the Galaxy's motto would be to bring the older guys in. Not that Ricky's necessarily older, but in the fact that it's like, okay, you see what he could be at his top level. Does he still have it? Who knows? And in my opinion, if that's even a question, you bring an attacking midfielder that's versatile in on a designated player contract. That way, if Ricky comes back and he's playing good, because you're going to have to start him, there's no way of getting out of Ricky being on this roster in 2027. You're going to have to make them coincide. And if you can move that DP attacking midfielder to the wing, to one of the wings, maybe if Peck leaves, I think, you deal with that situation next season. The Galaxy look, I've heard things from people that are close to the front office that say that there's no pressure within the organization on Greg Vanney or Will Kuntz, that all of the pressure right now is just being generated externally. And maybe that's the case, but look, you can't miss the playoffs again. That is the bare minimum. And I think if you wait until summer on using that DP spot, you could be in a position where maybe playoffs aren't even in the question, or it's a far reach because you end up in another 2025 situation. And if that's the case, there's going to be some real questions asked of everybody associated with that. And maybe it won't be the case, but yeah, Eli, your thoughts on Ricky Puig's injury, and then you can answer this question too. But thoughts on Ricky Puig, because we haven't had you on. So yeah, I know you made a video, but let's hear your full Ricky Puig explanation.
Yeah, I have a lot to say in response to kind of what you just said, what Dylan's mentioned earlier. So first of all, I think one way I'd be okay using the DP spot on a 10 would be Dylan mentioned, a false nine, having like a false nine type player for our wingers. Well, if we believe in Marco Reus as a false nine, have him convert to that, him play as that kind of answers that. But the reason why I believe we should still use that the U22 spot on a young attacking midfielder is when we talk about ACL injuries. You're right. Ricky had the ability at least to get through the tight spaces and stuff, but ACL injuries really ruin players who are fully reliant on speed and pace. And I don't think that's fully Ricky's game, where we've seen players like Jordan Morris take a huge dive in his career based on his ACL injuries because he was all pace at the start of his career. I hate to say it, but Marco Reus as well. But Marco Reus also is able to adapt. And I think I like the idea of having a young attacking midfielder DP that could maybe play alongside Ricky and have that player that could draw the attention of the defenses and make Ricky's game solely about, the long ball and the passing, what we know Ricky as his best strengths, because I don't think he'll lose his vision or IQ. When he comes back, he just won't maybe be as agile as you mentioned. So that's why I'm still on team U22 10. And if you have a star striker up front, all you need to do is find him. So that's kind of where I stand on all of that. I think I said everything. I had a lot to say, but I think I said it all in like one little bit there. But those are my thoughts.
Yeah. All right. Andrew, you can answer this question too.
Yeah. First of all, Eli, that was ball knowledge. Really, really great take. Love that. But in regards to this question, I don't think Nasi is in a make or break situation. Again, if the Galaxy is moving towards making a big move in the summer, then what Nasi does in these 6 months isn't necessarily their concern. If they've done this a couple of times last season, like with Ramirez, like you mentioned, but if they feel he's close and they feel they're close in terms of locking down their target for the summer, I don't think they'll have a problem sitting him, maybe playing with a 2 forward system. But Vanny just has that option now to maybe play without a striker, an out and out one. And even if Nascimento is not going to be the striker, Christian Ramirez is still there. And if, let's say, Nasi isn't performing, then you're not necessarily dropping too much quality from Nasi to Ramirez. So it's a pretty interchangeable move that you can make. So again, it's just that Nasi, I'm not sure, is in a make or break season. It maybe feels like his Galaxy future is kind of laid out for him. What he does at the end of this 6 month term is really going to be up for him to look out for. Maybe the team has already told them to maybe start looking at some options, but that's just stuff we don't know. That's all speculation. But yeah, Nasi, he's like in an interesting spot. He has a chance to do his best, maybe market himself to other teams as well. But the Galaxy maybe not as concerned as they normally would if they didn't have a plan. Kind of a trust the process approach maybe. But what Nascimento does or doesn't do might not be on the top of their list. Whereas someone like Justin Hawk with Jacob, with Yakov, I forget the last name. I don't want to mess it up. But that's probably pieces that the Galaxy want to see more return from in the short term.
Yeah.
Whereas with Nasi, there's not that pressure, I don't think.
Right. Dylan?
To answer this question, I do think it's make or break. And the reason I say that is because I talked about the championship ceiling being significantly lower now that Ricky Puig is gone. And to Eli's point earlier, like if you're not using a U22 spot for a quarter of the season, then you're just not understanding how this league works. And I think Will Kuntz understands that as well. Like you can't go into a season and not use major portions that help you win championships. Like we used all of the U22 minutes for most of the year in the championship year. Yov, Aude, and I'm forgetting the third. Why am I forgetting the third? Does anyone know it off the top of their head? Or do we have a third? Maybe I just answered the question completely wrong and now I can't remember.
Actually, sorry, this was before there was the rule where if you had 3 senior DPs that
right.
you only had 2 U22 spots, but now we have 3 and 3 regardless. There's no young designated player anymore. So
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah, so I just think you have to use everything that you're contractually able to. And Nascimento not playing a quarter of the year, he makes like what $600,000. That's like a huge portion of your cap. You can't let that happen. Yeah, I'm stuck in between a lot of thoughts, and you guys laid it out great. So I'm gonna leave it there.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, what are the expectations for Nascimento? I think it's a successful season for Nascimento if he has a total in all competitions, every competition, goals and assists, 15. Maybe 12. I think 15 is a little ambitious. I would say 12. For a U22 player, you bring him back permanently, you bring him back for the rest of the season. If that ends up happening and he stays the full year, I think 12 is a good start. You don't have Leagues Cup. Maybe 10, maybe 10 to 12. Maybe it's not a specific number. I think anywhere from 10 to 13, I would be happy with Nascimento, and anything over that's just a plus. But I think that's probably what I'd be happy with goal scoring wise. But also because of him being a false 9, I want to see more team success on top of that. If we want to judge him from the lens that he makes a team better, then I want to see the team be better. So I think he plays part in that. So yeah, Eli, what's a successful season for Nascimento?
I think definitely just hitting double digits. I wouldn't expect him to hit more or less. But I just think, as I mentioned earlier, that the Galaxy just believe in the product they saw at the end of last season. And they, hey, we should have been wooden spoon last year, and we somehow got out of it because of our play later on. And we had a great run in the Leagues Cup, and I think that's what the front office is looking at, and that's maybe why you hear there's no pressure on Vanny and Will Kuntz. I've been on the train where I agree that there maybe shouldn't be as much pressure on them based on the hand that they were dealt last year. Because what we saw with Will Kuntz in 2024 definitely gave me a lot of trust in him. Greg Vanny, I've never really been on the Vanny out train, but I think this is the year where I'm really going to judge it and maybe make that my decision in that sense. Where last year I kind of give him the excuse. This year it's all on the money. And one thing I hate to bring it in general, and a lot of Galaxy fans don't want to hear this, is the Galaxy can't afford to be terrible this year. And I hate to bring bigger picture stuff here, but with the World Cup happening, there's going to be new fans. And one thing I think the Galaxy have struggled with has been getting new fans. And LAFC, unfortunately, have been doing a great job with it. And if the Galaxy want to remain a top club and a big club within MLS, we will always spending wise, but we really need to make our mark this year and make it a product that new fans are going to want to come see. And I know Galaxy fans don't want to hear that because we have all the history and stuff, but unfortunately new fans don't care about the history. They're not going to care about the legacy. So it's so important that we get it right this year, whatever it is. Right. That's where I stand.
Andrew.
Yeah, success for Nasi. Numbers wise, anything less than 10, you start thinking we maybe could have used this U22 spot a little bit better, but that's the gamble the Galaxy are going with. I do believe he can probably hit 5 goals, 5 assists in a year. Like, I don't think that'll be a problem, but his real proving point again might be 6 months, might be in the summer halfway through. So if there's kind of 2 questions there, what would be successful for, a half a season? Is 8 goal contributions enough? 5, 2, and 3 enough? It's a little bit difficult to start making that math work. But it's there's just so many options the Galaxy can take, and it's Will Kuntz's job is to go ahead and make the best one. Eli, again, a really good point with the World Cup. You bring most new soccer fans nowadays in our area, I feel like, unfortunately, are LAFC fans. I just started a new job. I put a little bit in my get to know me bio, something about being a Galaxy fan. And, pretty much the owner of the company says, "Ooh, rough start. We're mostly LAFC over here." So that's just, the new modern soccer fan who just recently put their eyes on a game within the last 4 or 5 years. LAFC have been a much brighter star in this massive market. Whereas the Galaxy, for having so many stars, they haven't necessarily shown as brightly and really appealed to the average fan. And that's really the demographic we're going to be shooting for in the World Cup, is to capture the average fan. It's what we were able to do in '96 when we were the only team in the market, but now it's really time to prove it against some proper competition. So from the entire front office, it's really make or break time. We talk about starting to look a little bit at Kuntz, at Vanny, if things go wrong, but there's a whole other department in terms of the marketing, brand recognition. The Galaxy likes to spat out these numbers about having more season ticket holders than ever. All of this, growth that they like to use these metrics, and that just makes you wonder what else have we left on the table by not capitalizing. I'd love to see what the LAFC numbers have looked like the last couple of years. If we're breaking records, they must be smashing them. So if we're talking about being a big club and the type of rivalry we want to have with them, it has to be on all fronts. The Galaxy need to succeed on all fronts this year. It's a massive, massive year. For as much as they talk about maybe not having pressure, I think it's definitely on, especially when you have the context of the World Cup.
Yeah. Just to add real quick, Peyton, I know you don't want to hear this name anymore, but that's why I feel like the Galaxy almost need to sign Robert Lewandowski or another massive name to add to the fold to draw the attention, because San Diego aren't going anywhere. LAFC are going to keep signing names like that. And I hate to say it, but like we kind of have to keep up in that sense as well. And as much as Marco Reus is personally up there for me, he doesn't have that same attraction that, Son has had for LAFC.
Yeah. Let's hear it, Dylan.
Not a lot of teams rely on a U22 striker right now. I briefly went over the stats. It's kind of why I spaced out a little bit. Not gonna lie. I was trying to find another player that had similar production, but there's not a lot in the league. And so my expectation for Nasi, I'd love for him to get 15 G and A all comps. That'd be fantastic. If I can get that level of production out of a U22 player, the Galaxy might be able to win a championship.
Yeah.
But I think we're misprofiling what he does on the pitch for this team, because through multiple points of last season, the biggest issue that I had is I was like, Fagundes, Royce, and Ramirez can't play on the same pitch together. They don't have the legs for that. They just don't. And especially when you're playing Royce, you can watch a game with Messi, you can watch a game with Royce, and you can watch, they just don't have the legs to do the up and back anymore. And the person who did the up and back for Marco Reus was Nascimento. Yeah. And as currently constructed, we have 110, and his name is Marco Reus. So if we don't address that with either a younger player or somebody who can give you viable minutes there and do the up and back, Nascimento becomes, honestly, he might become the Galaxy's most important player from that respect if we don't change anything about the system. That's kind of where I think we'll switch and go to something different. But Nascimento is a young player who can do the running, give you the grit. I can't find that many U22 players that had more than 5 goals. He had 6 last year. So I just want to see him healthy. I want to see him running around and creating havoc. It's kind of to the Barry extent. Like, I think we've got enough talent around him where if you're in the right spot, you're doing the right thing, and you're covering for the stars that are around you, you will get goals. It will happen.
Yeah. No, I agree. I wanted to touch on Eli's point, but also the fact that Marco Reus can't be the guy you depend on next season. As much as, I know you love Marco Reus. His best role for the LA Galaxy, I think, is a rotational piece at this point in his career, where, he could start that occasional game if you need to give some guys rest. But mainly, I think he's most effective off of the bench at this point in his career. And I think he could do real damage off the bench. What did we lack last year? A lot of things, but depth. Depth was a huge part. And we didn't have it. I think if you could bring Marco Reus off the bench, it's a huge add, which is why I would go in the DP, U22 player type of thing. But also, if you could land a good U22, or not DP U22, but if you could land a good U22 player at the attacking midfielder position, what better guy to help you learn than Marco Reus? Like, let's be honest here. I mean, he could teach you everything that you could look at how much of a mentor he was to Ricky Puig. It showed that the guy looked up to him so much from the moment. Not very many things can humble Ricky Puig. That Marco Reus is one of them. Just because it's respect. It's game, game respect game. It's Ricky Puig respects Marco Reus, and Marco Reus respects, Ricky Puig. Going back to what Eli was talking about, it really is, and maybe they do go a level route because they think that, the Galaxy needs more appeal. I'm splitting between two minds here. One is that we've tried this thing before with older players coming to Major League Soccer that have a good market for them. You brought your Zlatan over. The reason why I'm a Galaxy fan is because of Zlatan. He brought me into Major League Soccer. It's him. So I'm victim of that. I'm victim for falling for some of these guys. So I understand the appeal. I understand the attraction. But me personally, I think what puts people into seats more than winning championships, more, and of course, whether LAFC win or not, there's going to be so much Heung-min Son Glazers in the stands with his jersey. Everybody loves Son. He has a whole fan base that just adores him, and they're in the comment section of every single LAFC post ever. Hundreds of comments like, "Oh, Sonny, we love you so much." Like, okay, we get it, great. And that sells tickets. That sells jerseys. Look at the amount of jerseys Heung-min Son has sold. It probably paid for his transfer in full, just from the sheer amount of jerseys. But for me, I want, and this is selfish. This isn't a business standpoint thing, but I want championships. I want championships more than, just star guys coming over. If you could get Lewandowski on TAM, that's completely different because that's a Marco Reus deal. But I think if you're using that designated player spot and it doesn't even necessarily have to be him, but an older player that has this fan base because you want to drag the appeal back towards the Galaxy side, then I understand why they would go with a guy like Lewandowski. It's just not something I would do unless it's a good contract of a TAM offer. Now, I think there's a lot of things that the Galaxy are doing outside of signings that's really ruining their marketing in Los Angeles. Look at it. Everyone has the LAFC hat everywhere. And you're like, oh, you talk to them and you're like, come on, man, like Galaxy, it's all about the Galaxy, whatever. And they're like, oh, I'm not even an LAFC fan. I just like the hat. Dude, we're missing out on these things. We're missing out on certain, not saying that we have to have a nice hat, but this speaks to the marketing of the Galaxy in general. I'm sorry, it's shit. I'm sorry, it's not good. It's terrible right now because we're losing all the drag and appeal to LAFC in San Diego. Our fans are being split. People are jumping ship. It's not, and those fans suck. Those fans suck. You could sit here and be like, oh, those aren't the fans we want. That's from a business perspective, that's money you want in your pockets. That's money that when AEG looks at how the Galaxy are doing revenue wise at the end of the year that we're not having right now. We're not having because our marketing in general should be more than just reliant on a single big name player coming to the Galaxy. It's very few times you'll get another guy like Zlatan in Major League Soccer, and maybe Lewandowski is that guy. But for me, the Galaxy from a marketing perspective, I wanted to go on this tangent for a while. It's terrible. The appeal, the attraction. I'm sorry. I don't really care about Kobe Club. And no disrespect to Kobe Jones. Absolute legend. Love Kobe Jones. But if that's where our marketing is, we're appealing to the wrong base. We're appealing to a base of MLS supporters that know ball because they paid attention to all of the amazing things Kobe Jones did. And they're like, oh, I want to hear what this guy has to say, but we can't live in the past for so long when there's other teams doing more in the present. It can't happen. That is how you lose your marketing in Los Angeles. And people could pretend like it doesn't matter. It matters. It absolutely does. But I'll let someone else follow up from here.
Well, I want to add on to what you were saying is like I agree wholeheartedly, and that's what I meant when I talked earlier about how we rely way too much on our reputation around the league and as a club sporting wise, because like I said, people don't care about that, especially when they're new to the sport. To them, MLS didn't exist until 2018 or whatever. But one thing that really sucks, and the reason why I'm on this, like, oh, we need Lewandowski and we need this, like, the Galaxy have this culture of winning, right? And we absolutely did the worst thing possible after winning MLS Cup and sucked. Sure, we lost Ricky and everything, but that made us start at ground zero again. So we have to rebuild that reputation again. Yes, we won more recently than LAFC did. No one cares because of how dog shit we were last year. Like, people's brain move on very fast. If we were still really good and we maybe didn't win MLS Cup this year against Miami, but we made it far into the playoffs, we're looking at a different thing. We're talking about the Galaxy very differently, but it's the fact that we were terrible in a year where LAFC make probably the best marketing signing of all time, aside from Messi. It's rough, and it definitely doesn't help. And yeah, you mentioned the logo thing. I personally love the Galaxy logo, so I don't want to change it. But in terms of brand awareness, LAFC knocked out of the park with their logo, having a very simple LA. I mean, so many people across LA wear a Dodger hat. They don't care about baseball. It's just they're representing an LA team. They're just representing LA, and that's what unfortunately I think LAFC has done well. Yes, loyalty over trends, but the problem is we're trying to get new people. We're loyal, but it's about getting the new fans over. So yeah, I agree. But people don't care about loyalty or since 96 the way that, actual, Galaxy fans care about it.
Yeah. And that's not going to keep your job in marketing either. Like, go ahead. Like, the loyalty over trends thing, it's not going to keep your job if you're doing crap at it. But go ahead, Dylan.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here just because I've
Perfect.
worked within the sports industry a little bit. And so the marketing thing has always been super fascinating to me from a team perspective. And where I'm going to give some pushback here is I think the Galaxy have the most difficult marketing scheme to go at because they're like a historic club. It's very similar to the Lakers. Like if you go look at the Lakers branding, it has been the same for 20 years and it'll never change because it can't change. I think if you look around the league and you look at some of the other teams that are historic, like it doesn't, when they try to go against the grain of being the historic club where they try to be an LAFC, it's very difficult. There's this constant push and pull. Like even Chicago just adding in the like breaking the fire hydrant thing that they do has come off as cringe. Like some people don't like that. And it's met with a lot of criticism. And I think the Galaxy are constantly in this fighting history compared to the normal marketing trends of sports today. And I 100% agree with like 95% of what you're saying, because I agree. Times change. This league is ever evolving and you should change with it as well. I just think that we're more mom and pop than I think people care to admit. And we don't have Will Ferrell as an owner. We aren't as progressive as a team that just recently came in. And that's where I find them constantly having this like, oh, we're just going to do what has worked for 20 years because I don't know how else we go about it, because it will be such a stark difference from what everyone has seen throughout the course of history.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cough right as I got on the mic. No, my biggest fear is, and this should be all Galaxy fans' fears, is we don't want to become DC United. We don't want to become a team that had their glory days in the past. We talk about with the Lakers, they've had very few eras where, in the grand scheme of things, where they were bad. Every year, pretty much the Lakers at least have a big names and they're leading their way. Yeah, the mid 2010s were rough for them, but whatever, they got through that. But no one cared about that because they had already built that reputation globally. And, MLS isn't at a place yet where, we could have that reputation globally, and, we aren't the top league or whatever. But that's where I disagree, but also agree with you there where with the Lakers thing.
No, I 100% agree with everything you're saying. I understand why they need to change. I think that they should. I'd like to see them go against the grain and not do what every historic club has done. I think that like Columbus is a really good example of a team that does things against the grain that looks really good. Mm-hmm. And for a team in Columbus, they've almost had to. And like their jersey concepts, everything they do is very hip. It's very stylish. It works. But then there's also the flip coin of that of like New England, where I look at them and I just go like, what are we? We're still stuck back in the early 90s, and the Galaxy are somewhere in between that. And so I'd rather them lean into going in that direction. But also, to your point in the very beginning, like stars make brands, and the Galaxy without Ricky don't have that recognizable star. Paintsel is great. Peck is great. Royce is a phenomenal star, but he's a star in the sense of like, you're a footy head, you know who Marco Royce is. You played FIFA, you know who Marco Royce is. But you're not, I don't know many people that will pay to come see Marco Royce the same way that people paid to come see David Beckham. We haven't had that star in a long time, or like Zlatan. We're waiting for that next one. It'll be, I'm curious to see where they kind of go in that direction.
Absolutely.
I feel like Zlatan was almost like a Band-Aid for the Galaxy when LAFC came in to kind of hide the problems for 1 second, because the problems were already beginning to get there with the Galaxy even before LAFC came in. But then that just was a little buffer, and I almost feel like we need a little buffer right now to rebuild behind the scenes. And that's why like I really want Robert Lewandowski.
The point makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's you need to have someone to kind of hold the guys that are going to switch over off, or become new fans off for just a second, so that we could get our act together real quick.
Yeah,
Andrew.
Yeah, I think an interesting point in this conversation is if the Galaxy, I think that they just unfortunately maybe had what is so far their historical peak in an era of the MLS that just isn't as impactful as the MLS now. when the Galaxy were, coming up, especially after that 96 World Cup, where suddenly there's this focus on US soccer slightly before. And then definitely after that is when they started winning the most cups out of anybody. They started signing these names like David Beckham. And really, when you thought of American soccer, the one club most fans worldwide thought about was the LA Galaxy. But that kind of came and went. And, the MLS is now it just has a much larger audience now than it did then. If the Galaxy had achieved a similar level of dominance, they would be kind of enjoying what Inter Miami is enjoying right now, where they are the face of the league. When you think US soccer, you think MLS, you think of those stars. The Galaxy, like Dylan said, like Eli said, they just haven't had that name yet, or they've combined, the growth of the league with their worst period historically. They were the team when the league was really first kicking up for the first time ever. But since then, it's almost like the league has left them behind, or if they let themselves get left behind. So, an interesting situation. But at the end of the day, will Kuntz's MO, what this version of the Galaxy, it's not make the big signing, it's attract fans by winning titles. And they did it in 24. Ricky Puig kind of threw everything surrounding that out the window, but they were poised to be in a really fantastic, maybe 2-3 titles in 3 years with Ricky Puig leading up to the World Cup and being that name. But if that's, again, just one of those many, many things that we'll miss not having because of Ricky Puig. But the time is now for the Galaxy. But to think that it's going to be just a marketing thing that's going to change it, switching to strategy, that's not going to be enough. It has to come with winning, with titles, with playing good football. And you definitely don't get that competing for wooden spoon and getting knocked out of competition. So it's just, again, the same thing. The pressure is on everybody to step it up, to have a good year this year.
Yeah, no, like we talked about, hey, I have, so many people during that 2024 run showed up to the stadium for the first time.
Yeah.
They were newer fans. I'm sure that generated so many, Galaxy fans that are probably still fans even after that bad year, maybe a little less invested, but, they're still repping the Galaxy because of the run that they had in 2024. Nobody's forgetting about 2024. This isn't, I'll rephrase that. Success on the field, like Andrew said, is very, very important to generating an audience base, to getting butts in seats. It's winning. Los Angeles wants a winner. They want to see the club that's consistently competing year after year after year. And I'll give the Galaxy credit. That's not where my worry lies, because I think that I trust Will Kuntz, and I know a lot of people don't, but and it's still to be determined to an extent, but I do trust Greg Vanney as it stands to right the ship next year and make this a more consistent, to make it a more consistent team that year after year not only competes for the playoffs, but can compete for home playoff games every year. I think that's where the Galaxy can head, is to a Seattle direction. Oopsies. We've talked about him on the podcast, Ravi Ramanemi. I probably butchered that. From Seattle. I think he's a huge guy that could help replicate the success that Seattle had throughout all those years. He's one of those guys that, can be able to make you sustain success more. That's not my issue. My concern is, and I'm not saying that the solution is to change the logo. I love the logo. I think that would be absolute woke nonsense if they changed the logo. I would be pissed. I love it. There's certain aspects, and here's my issues, because deep down, I know that the Galaxy solution to this whole problem is just going to be changing the logo in a few years. That's what I feel, because they've thrown around that idea. I've heard speculation in the past that, they're, considering changing, the logo or something about the branding, and maybe they tweak it slightly. But my worry is that they're not seeing what's actually wrong here. And it's not the logo. It's okay. Look, God, I hate using them as an example. I don't know other MLS teams enough, besides the one that's right next to us, other than the Galaxy, because they're just right next to us. But I've seen people, like I said, I've seen people that don't even pay attention to Major League Soccer, or didn't really care that much about Major League Soccer start to attach themselves more to LAFC because of stupid little things like Hello Kitty Night, like
Yeah.
things like Hello Kitty Night, or like a stupid freaking bobblehead or whatever. And we do bobbleheads, we do good at that, but I'm not saying that's the solution to all of it. I'm saying that it's a accumulation of everything, and right now we don't have it all put together. And the fact that you can't have success on the field right now is making everything kind of marketing wise fall apart a little bit. And you can't afford that when you're one of 4 teams in California. You can't afford it. And one of 3 teams within this more local region, I know San Jose is in NorCal, but like, now you're competing with San Diego. They're doing good marketing wise, they're doing exceptional on their own, on their own behalf. They're doing good too. It's where the Galaxy are right now that I think, we need to do better. We need to do better marketing wise, and it's just not on that. But we'll transition a little here. I know people talked about it a lot. Tyler Boyd, free agent now, or technically not, because he was waived by Nashville. So I think he has to go through the waiver wire process. But I think he'll end up as a free agent. Tore his ACL in the year that the Galaxy won MLS Cup. Hasn't been the same player, hasn't reached the same heights that he reached with the Galaxy. That being said, and he is, I know somebody asked what's his salary compared to Fagundes. He's pretty much the same last year, which is why they waived him. But if you pick him up as a free agent or off of the waiver wire, you get to kind of control how much he gets paid. You're not picking up that whole 1 point. There's no world where any team in MLS right now picks up Tyler Boyd's 1.1-ish million. I'm sorry. I think it's 1.1. It's not happening. Would you like to see Tyler Boyd come back to the Galaxy? And if so, what's the right price? I'll let you start, Dylan.
Oh man, what's the right price is a difficult question. I don't think we have much money to work with, so I'd have to say very low. I think it'd have to be similar to the way he came in, where you're like, hey man, we'll give you that second chance again, that opportunity to be here maybe for a year as a rental while we're covering for Peck and Paintsel. And if you outplay whatever your contract is, we'll look at it the following year. I just can't give, with good conscience, more than like 500,000. That's still a lot for a guy that, one, ACL injuries we've talked about them, they're tricky. And for a guy that will play very little minutes, because Peck and Paintsel do not leave the field.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. And we are already paying 2 strikers $1 million combined. You've got Marco Royce. I go back to the talent there. And honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you, if we were picking between him or Fagundes, I'm picking Fagundes still. Right? So I just don't know why, unless he's taking some crazy, crazy discount.
Yeah.
And I love Tyler Boyd. I think he's great. It seems unrealistic at this point.
Is there a price though? Before you lie, is there I know you said low, but like how low? Because I think when he initially came here, it was like 300K. I mean,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I think that's probably where he ends up next, is a contract like that after paying.
If it's $300,000, sign me up twice, and we'll rock with Tyler Boyd.
Maybe a little more, but
I can do 300. I think.
Yeah.
Max. Yeah.
Eli.
Hot take, but I would only take him back on a senior minimum. I would much rather you use whatever money we have left to bring back Fagundes at this point. He's someone who's just chilling for free right now, doesn't have an offer on the table from anyone, and he's more ingrained into the current culture of the Galaxy, for better or worse. Like we talk about Nascimento, I'd rather have him back in that sense. And also, like, he did provide something at some points for us last year, which was enough to give him player of the year for us, which I'm still confused about. But I would much rather find a way to bring him back. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this player leaving, but the cap that's now available from losing Zanka, I would rather use that on just bringing back Fagundes. And I think that actually opens a pathway to maybe getting Fagundes an offer that's more suitable for his needs and our need, or our ability to sign someone.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think that's a really great take. Something else I had mentioned Daniel Moreno in the chat mentioned this point I like, but he's someone I've mentioned before as an option that we could bring back. I'd probably take Gaston Brugman over Tyler Boyd on a free agent type deal. Is it in an area of as much need? Maybe not, but I think Brugman is just the perfect piece to slot into that midfield. Really, really good at progressing the ball, experience, knows the league, and as a Uruguayan and in a similar who as an Uruguayan who plays in a similar position as someone like Lucas Sanabria, I love the idea of that mentorship program kind of sparking up. I think it'd be a great internship year for Lucas Sanabria to play maybe that understudy role and to train, practice, and learn under someone like Gaston Brugman, who's so proficient at that role, has done it at a top European level. I just like that a lot. It's one that makes sense to me. But at the end of the day, maybe that left wing spot is a little bit more pressing. But to be honest, I don't see any of those deals going through. But if we were playing in hypothetical land, I just love the idea of a Gaston Brugman return a little bit more than a Tyler Boyd.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm looking at the list right now, and it's like, if we don't bring back Fagundes, the next best option of like free agent wingers available is like Emma Boateng in like the big 2026. Like it's not looking great there. So unless you want to make a trade within the league, I mean, in terms of guys who are ready to go available right now, I mean, I love Diego Fagundes as our third winger. In our rotation, we just can't pay him the same way that we were paying him before. But it's not looking great in the free agency pool right now. And I would just rather, with Nascimento, as we talked about with the U22, and as we talk about, I would love Ryan Raposo, but that's a more biased thing. But a personal bias thing.
Maybe.
But the same thing as we talk about with Nascimento, it's a safer bet, and it's someone who's been with the club and is ready to go, and it at least brought something or gave something to us last year.
Yeah. And go ahead.
No, I was literally thinking of this same exact point. Him or Cuevas are better options as backup wingers in terms of pipeline too. Like, you don't want to stunt the growth of two players that already proved that they could do this thing very well last season. That's the whole point of the entire back end being as crappy as it was, is a lot of the young guys got to play, and Harbor Miller and Cuevas both proved that they could play backup winger minutes. There's not a lot to go around. So, Kevin Cabral return.
Or that guy.
Well, at least he might have been in America enough to where he wouldn't take an international roster spot. So who knows, guys?
He might have that green card.
Who knows? Ricky's still counting for one. Which is a bit crazy, by the way, the fact that guy hasn't gotten a green card. Anyway, that's besides the point. No, seriously, I think you're right. I think you could see, I mean, Vanny kind of talked about the fact they want Harbor Miller as more of a right back. And you heard some Cuevas, rumors to Liga MX. Maybe that doesn't end up happening. It's tough. It's really tough because there's definitely things you could do. I feel like there is a price on Tyler Boyd for me, and maybe I'm being nostalgic. But I feel like that price is, I think it's similar to what you said, Dylan. I think it's probably, I'll take him probably $350K. Diego Fagundes, I would like back at the right price. But that's a huge caveat on the right price. And I did see a rumor that maybe he's going back to Uruguay. I think someone somewhere will pay for Diego Fagundes more than we can offer him, because right now I'd only bring him back at like a number that's probably going to make him disgusted. But we're going to quickly wrap up here. We've gone a little over again. Diogo Bajoy, Galaxy once again interested in this guy. He looks like he's 13. He looks like he's 13 years old. Not that has any indication on how good of a player he is. I've heard some good things about him. He's once again rumored to the Galaxy. Does anyone know much about this guy besides the fact we were rumored last offseason to him and that he's a young center back?
Nope. But we hit on Garces.
Yeah,
we hit on Garces. So hey, if we hit on Garces, I'll take another swing, especially with a guy like Yoshida potentially leaving, or he will be leaving at the end of this season. Youth in the center back position in this league is vital. I don't think you can really avoid it. If you don't have youth in the position, it stunts you. And teams across the league have been hit pretty hard. I think LAFC, I look at them and the quality that dropped when Long went out last season was very similar, where you're like, we just got no one to replace that level of defender. And so if you've got 4 or 5 guys in a group, especially young guys that can step up in spots, it seems, I mean, it doesn't sound like he'd be expensive, right? Did they
No.
have any price tag on
not
him?
a figure, but it would probably be similar to what Garces was making first year.
Yeah, what was the last installment on Garces that we just paid? Was it 600,000?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Steal.
Sounds good.
Steal. Yeah. Yeah. I once again don't know much about the guy, but hey, if he could be something similar to Miro Garces, then completely fine. Just another housekeeping thing. Galesnes, number 15, taking Eric Zavaleta. I know everyone's favorite player, taking his number. So we got Galesnes 15. If you're looking to get a new kit for next season, that will be the number that he's taking based on preseason numbers. And then the final piece of news, what everybody's been waiting for, Zanka out. There you go. There we go. Zanka. I mean, this is not 100% confirmed, but it's looking very, very likely. Reports out of Denmark coming that the Galaxy have agreed to a mutual termination with Zanka. Not a full buyout. That's what that makes it sound like, is that it's not a full buyout, which means that we're not going to have to pay the full 600K to him. If I had to guess, they probably said, hey, 200K and you can go away. 200K, go back to Denmark, go wherever. So it seems like that's going to be the case with Zanka. He's just going to, go back overseas, because if the Galaxy released him, he would still be an MLS player, and only MLS teams would be able to sign him. And I don't think he wants to end up playing for the Montreal, for CF Montreal. I just don't think that's in his best interest. So I think they agreed to something that mutually worked for both of them. So, your guys' thoughts on Garces, and then also Zendejas, nothing to that. But yeah, Amiro Garces, or not Amiro Garces, Zanka. Initial thoughts on him coming to a mutual contract termination. We'll start with Andrew this time. Oh, go ahead, Eli.
I just want to say bye. All right, that's all I had to say about him.
Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that everybody, I feel like, has been asking for a while. It's just the writing was written on the wall. He was the 4th choice defender behind someone like Chris Rindolph coming up from BCFC. If an academy player is taking your spot as, supposedly Premier League European veteran, it doesn't say good things about what the team have planned for you in the future. I feel like this is something that maybe conversations were in place a while ago. Just a matter about getting that exact go away number right. Yeah. But all in all, it's not a bad move for the Galaxy, and they're more than stacked in that position. And when players like Glesnes and Hack were first signed, the question immediately became, is it going to be Zanka? Is it going to be Yoshida taking that step out? And we recently saw that post from Yoshida with Yamane, a couple of other the Japangelis kind of athletes, and ready for the next year, all out, fully kitted out in Galaxy gear. It's just the writing on the wall that the Galaxy decided to go with Yoshida, and that makes the most sense. I feel like it's a great deal for Yoshida. We've talked about it a little bit, but him wanting some stability for his family was a big point in him taking a pay cut in 2024. And I imagine that's a big point in him, deciding to stay or wanting to stay for this year. I'm sure, I believe his daughter's around the high school age, thinking about colleges, all of that. Important time for her, apart from the football. And that's, as a father, that's going to be important to someone like Yoshida. So, happy on, the professional side, on the personal side for him. And as a fan, I think of the 2 veteran defenders, he was absolutely the one to hold on to. Zanka, once a G, always a G, but glad to see the back you, unfortunately.
Yeah. Dylan, and then Eli, and then we'll wrap this all up. Dylan?
I'll keep it really short here. You can tell how good a player is by the way that the club's fans react when they leave. This is back-to-back clubs besides Cabral, of course. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. But this is back-to-back clubs where both fan bases are like, thank God he's off my team. Yeah. And that's always a warning sign for me when it comes to players. And he fit the bill. They were not They were not wrong. He is genuinely atrocious. So happy to see him go.
Going
Eli?
off of what Dylan said, but the opposite way, you look at how NYCFC fans reacted to us getting Justin Hack, and how could you not be more excited for what our center back rotation is going to look like next year compared to what it's been over the last almost 10 years now, honestly, for the Galaxy. I mean, I think we're deep at center back now, so I don't know about this Bouge, whatever his name was. I don't care about him. I don't think we necessarily need him. Because I look at our center back rotation of Justin Hack, Jacob Glesnes, who's best 11 last year, Garces, who's had moments of him being like the GOAT for us, and then, some not so great moments. And the chat is saying Chris Rindolph. Chris Rindolph is someone I'd like to see more of, because I think he was promising in a lot of his in his matches, where I don't think we need Yoshida. Yoshida might not even play a lot next year, and I'd be okay with that. He's just a vibes guy in the locker room and as a leader. So I'm very excited for our center back. I don't think we need to focus on anyone else in that spot until proven otherwise. So, Sia Zanka, free up that cap. I would love. I unfortunately I would love to free up Yoshida's cap as well.
Yeah, me too.
But I think we're set. We're 5 deep at center back right now, and I'm pretty comfortable with at least 3.5 of those guys.
Yeah. No, same here. We do not have 4 goalkeepers. We'll be rolling with Novak as the starter, likely. JT is the backup, and Brady Scott is the third. Zanka, just my final comments. Good riddance. I mean, I don't think we need to harp on it too much. You guys saw how terrible he played. It goes without saying. It just needed to happen for him. He'll go back to Europe and stink it up there probably. Best of luck to him. Get that last paycheck, brother. Go to Saudi Arabia. You are an El Etifak. Thank you very much for your contribution, except it wasn't much. So, Rindov, I think, is fine taking that position. Zanka, we'll talk about it in future podcasts. I like the money that they're clearing up from this, and I think that's the most important factor. And you clear an international spot. That's another underrated thing in this, is that you clear an international spot. Hack and Glesnes don't take up one. So, it's a positive 1 turnover. So that's everything, guys. We went through everything. It took an hour 40, but we did it. Thank you guys all in the chat for tuning in once again. Appreciate the support every podcast. We are back here Tuesday. Make sure you like and subscribe right now. Tuesday at 8 p.m. every single week. Like and subscribe. Dylan, where can people find you?
COC Network. That's where I'm at everywhere. I'm going to plug where we're at currently in this moment, because I'm hoping that there's 25 people in the chat that don't subscribe to our channel. We're at 176. So you could be a part of the first 200 people to be a part of Cock Network. That's fantastic. It just has a nice ring to it, right? So
yeah, everyone go over there.
That'd be great. But this has been a pleasure, Eli. It's awesome finally getting to talk to you. And as a resident glazer on this podcast, I'm going to do some glazing here. It's been awesome talking to you, and you're one of the MLS content creating goats, and you've gone and done fantastic stuff in the European division. It's been awesome to see your development. And honestly, for me, and probably for Andrew and Peyton as well, it's been my camera died, to let you know that an hour and 37 minutes is where it dies. But it is really a spark and a creative juice to see you continue to grow as a creator. And it really helps guys like me just continue on the path, especially with the US being a growing soccer community. So thank you.
Thank you for the kind words. I'm really bad at taking compliments, but love what you guys are doing as well. I've been tapped in with you guys. I was very excited when I saw that you were on the podcast, because I know Andrew, I know Peyton, but I've never actually talked to you before, Dylan. So it's nice to finally get to know you. My whole goal is to set an example, I guess, for everyone who wants to make content in the MLS space, and to make, I almost feel pressure sometimes where it's like, I have to make it so that everyone else can make it, which that's not necessarily the case, but I want to create a table for everyone, not just like room at the table for everyone, but create that table. But thank you guys for having me. And also find me Eli Lester TV, but also please shop my merch. Buy one, get one free right now for the No Complacency collection. And if you're a Galaxy fan and you're in this chat, I'll even throw in a third item for you guys. So
everybody go check out the store, buy some merch.
Link in bio.
Yep. Link in bio. Andrew.
Plug. Yeah. Yeah, it's super fun episode, guys. Really glad to be back. Peyton cooking with the guests. You're doing some really great work with the pod. Keep that up.
Thank you.
Definitely a pleasure to be on here. But yeah, you see it on the screen. NGF Andrew on Twitter. That's my favorite place to be. We're also on Instagram, Nuestra Galaxia Futbolera. And the main hub for all my stuff is Los Angeles Sports Nation. Weekly articles there. We got some coverage coming at you from the press box. If you guys want to ask, questions to Vanny, whatever, hit my DM, put them in, any comment section. I'll be sure to see it. I want to get you guys in there with me as well. It's a big part of what we do. But yeah, appreciate you guys checking all of us out. This is all coverage. Everyone here, from the bottom of our hearts, out of a shared passion for something that unites everybody in here. So, this is something special. Support these guys and let's have a great year like the Galaxy will in 2026. I'm manifesting it now.
Absolutely. As for myself, I am LA Galaxy _buzz or Anfield headlines _ on Instagram. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Eli. Please go support their work. These guys work very hard to provide you the best Galaxy content week in, week out. Eli with the MLS content, Bundesliga. What can this guy not do? Go support the merch. Fire stuff over there. Link in bio, as he says. Thank you guys once again, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And yeah, peace out, everyone.